Right now, in 2026, more than 1 million people in America walked into a car dealership, looked at the price tag, and just walked away. They didn't buy a car. They couldn't. And here's the strange part. This isn't happening because people don't want cars. It's happening to almost every single car company on the planet at the exact same time. Toyota, the biggest car company in the world, just had one of its worst quarters in years. Their profits dropped by almost half. Volkswagen, one of the oldest and proudest car companies in Europe, just announced they're cutting 50,000 jobs. 50,000 people gone. Honda posted its first loss in almost 70 years. 70 years. That means Honda survived World War II, survived every recession since, and never lost money in a single year until now. And Stellantis, the company that owns Jeep, Chrysler, and Dodge, just had the worst year any car company has had outside of a full global recession. So what's going on? Is it the economy? Is it something bigger? And why does it feel like every car company on Earth is struggling at exactly the same time? That's exactly what we're going to figure out in this video. And by the end, you're going to understand something most people don't. This isn't really about cars at all. It's about something much bigger, something that affects almost every part of the economy and probably your own wallet too. Let's start at the beginning. For most of your life, buying a car was simple. You went to a dealership, you picked a car, you either paid for it or you got a loan from a bank and paid it off over a few years. Car companies made money by building cars, selling cars, and slowly growing every year. It wasn't the most exciting business in the world, but it was steady, predictable, reliable. But starting around 2020, something changed. A few things happened, one after another, like dominoes falling. First, factories around the world shut down for months because of the pandemic. Car companies couldn't get the parts they needed, especially tiny computer chips that go inside every modern car. Then, when factories reopened, there weren't enough new cars being made. So prices for both new and used cars shot up, way up, faster than almost anything else in the economy. Then interest rates went up. This is important, so let's slow down here. Most people don't pay for a car all at once with cash. Most people borrow the money the same way you'd borrow money for a house. This is called a car loan. When interest rates are low, borrowing money is cheap. You pay a small extra amount on top of the car's price. But when interest rates go up, borrowing money becomes expensive. You end up paying thousands of extra dollars just in interest on top of the car itself. Think of it like this. Imagine you want to buy a bike that costs $100. If your friend lends you the money and only asks for $5 extra, that's easy to agree to. But if your friend suddenly says, actually, you need to pay me back $30 extra, you might think twice about buying that bike at all. That's basically what happened with car loans. Average car payments went from a few $100s a month to numbers that started looking like a second rent payment. For a lot of families, that simply wasn't possible anymore. So people did the only thing they could do. They stopped buying. They kept driving their old cars longer. They waited. And when over 1 million people decide to wait at the same time, car companies feel it immediately in their profits, in their factories, and eventually in their jobs. But interest rates alone don't explain everything. There's another piece of this puzzle, and it's a word you've probably heard a lot lately: tariffs. A tariff is basically a tax that a country puts on goods coming in from another country. So if a car or car parts are made in one country and sold in another, a tariff can make that car more expensive to import. In recent years, the United States put new tariffs on cars and car parts coming from other countries. The idea behind tariffs is usually to protect local companies and local jobs. If foreign cars become more expensive, the thinking goes, people will buy more cars made at home instead. But here's the problem. Cars aren't actually made in just one country anymore. A single car might have an engine built in Japan, electronics built in Taiwan, steel from South Korea, and only get assembled, put together in the United States. So when tariffs go up, it doesn't just affect foreign car companies. It affects almost every car company because almost every car company depends on parts from all over the world. This is exactly what happened to Toyota. Their fourth quarter profits dropped by a massive amount, and a big part of the reason was new tariffs, making their cars more expensive to bring into the US market. It's a bit like trying to bake a cake, but suddenly the flour costs 3 times more, the sugar costs twice as much, and the eggs are harder to find. Even if you're an amazing baker, your cake is going to cost a lot more to make, and you'll either have to charge customers more or lose money on every single cake you sell. Car companies are facing that exact choice on a massive scale with millions of cars. Let's talk about one company in particular because their story shows just how messy this whole situation has become. Stellantis, the company behind Jeep, Chrysler, and Dodge. Stellantis just had the worst financial year of any car company outside of a major global recession. Their losses were enormous. So, what did their CEO decide to do? He announced a big turnaround plan, a plan to fix everything and get the company back on track. And one of the biggest parts of that plan, going all in on V8 engines. Big, powerful, gas-guzzling engines, the kind that use a lot more fuel at a time when fuel prices are unpredictable and many car buyers are actually moving towards smaller, more efficient vehicles. Here's where it gets almost unbelievable. This plan was announced just 2 days before a major war broke out involving Iran, a country that plays a huge role in the world's oil supply. When wars happen in oil-producing regions, oil prices usually become unstable, sometimes spiking dramatically. So Stellantis bet big on powerful, gas-hungry engines right before oil prices became one of the most uncertain things in the entire global economy. Now, to be fair, nobody can predict a war, but this story shows something important about this entire crisis. Even when companies try to fix their problems, the world around them keeps changing in ways nobody can fully control. Here's something most news stories don't talk about enough. When car companies lose money, it's not just executives and shareholders who feel it. 50,000 people at Volkswagen are losing their jobs. That's 50,000 families who now have to figure out their next steps, pay their bills, and find new work. Car factories often exist in smaller towns where they're one of the biggest employers in the entire area. When a factory slows down or closes, it doesn't just affect factory workers. It affects the restaurants nearby, the local shops, the schools, the entire local economy that depends on people having steady paychecks. And on the other side, everyday families who simply wanted to buy a reliable car for their kids or to get to work are stuck with old, breaking down vehicles because new cars have become too expensive to afford. This is what economists sometimes call a ripple effect. One change, like higher interest rates or new tariffs, doesn't just stay in one place. It spreads outward, touching factory workers, car buyers, small towns, and entire industries all at once. So, is the entire car industry doomed? Not exactly. Crisis usually creates change, and change always creates winners and losers. Some car companies are using this difficult moment to rethink everything, building more efficient factories, focusing on cheaper models, and trying to make cars more affordable again instead of constantly making them bigger and more expensive. Companies that adapt quickly, that listen to what people can actually afford right now instead of what they used to be able to afford, have a real chance to come out of this stronger than before. History actually shows us this pattern again and again. After difficult economic periods, the companies willing to change the fastest are usually the ones still standing strong years later. The ones that refuse to change, the ones that keep doing things the old way and hoping the problem fixes itself, are usually the ones that struggle the most or disappear completely. So let's bring this all together. The car market isn't struggling because of one single problem. It's struggling because of several problems happening at the exact same time. High interest rates making loans expensive, tariffs making parts and cars more costly, and unpredictable world events like wars making everything even harder to plan for. Real people, real families, and real workers are caught in the middle of all of it, often through no fault of their own. And this story isn't really just about cars. It's a perfect example of how connected our entire global economy actually is. A war on one side of the world can affect a car factory worker's job on the other side of the world. A decision made in a government office about tariffs can affect whether a family can afford a safe, reliable car for their kids. So here's the question worth thinking about as the world keeps changing this fast, with new tariffs, new conflicts, and new economic surprises seemingly every year. Is it even possible for any company, no matter how big or successful, to truly plan for the future anymore? What do you think?